Hello there, everyone across the worldwide world. I'm Jeff, your tabletop technician here on the Dice Tower. And if things go according to plan, then you are watching episode 1 of what I have not been authorized to call Jeff Week, where I somewhat sort of hijack the channel while the Dice Tower staff are in Orlando, Florida for the Dice Tower East convention, which, as it turns out, I will be attending too. That was sort of a last-minute change of plans. But I'm still going to take this opportunity to share with you my top 100 games, a series of videos which was made possible in no small part by you, the Dice Tower audience, for your generous contributions to the 2024 Dice Tower Kickstarter campaign, for which this series was a stretch goal. So, on behalf of the Dice Tower, thank you for supporting the channel for another year. And as always, of course, a big thanks to Tom and the team there in Homestead for letting me be a part of that campaign. And to show you my appreciation, I put together this snazzy little introduction. I hope you enjoy. I am really excited to produce this series, but I'll tell you, this was a smidge difficult for me to do because in all honesty, I have played nowhere near as many games as the rest of the Dice Tower crew have. While I started playing games back in 2016, I really only found myself in a gaming-rich environment in 2020, which of course was a lousy year for meeting up to play games. So it wasn't really until 2021 that I really got to start playing a lot of new games, and that's also when I started attending the Dice Tower Retreat, which has become a huge opportunity over the past 3 years to get to try out a bunch of new games in a relatively short period of time. I think overall, though, you're going to see a very different list over these next 10 episodes. I think you're going to see several games you've never heard of, and you won't see a lot of games from, say, the top 100 over on BGG. I tend to root for the underdogs. I kind of wander off the beaten path, and I hope I can introduce you to some new stuff. And with all that being said, let's kick off the list. Kicking off the 100 with a somewhat well-known, popular game. This is Cascadia by Flat Out Games and AEG. This is sort of the second in a trio of games, a trilogy of games, starting off with Calico, then Cascadia, and the most recent was Verdant. And all of these games had players sort of drafting from either tiles or cards or other components, trying to build out a tableau in front of them to get a variety of endgame scoring opportunities to sort of trigger off for them. I like Verdant better in terms of gameplay because it has the most options to choose from, and it also has the most opportunities to mitigate a bad draw out of either a bag or some cards, whatever you were playing for in that game. This one was a little more restrictive, but I like the theme of Cascadia better than that of Verdant. I do think that because of that sort of randomness of the draw and the fact that usually you're trying to finish off just a few things at the end of your game, and if those things don't show up, then you just kind of fail. And that's why these games aren't higher on my list, but I do still enjoy a good playthrough of Cascadia, my number 100. Number 99 on this list is probably the first time you're going to hear me say this. Now time for something completely different. This is Reality Shift from Apollo Games and the designer Matt Hansen, who autographed this copy right up here. I actually kind of owe this to Tom Vassell. He reviewed this game on the channel quite some time ago, and it certainly caught my interest. This is a racing game where you're playing these little tiny Tron bikes racing across this 3D environment of these plastic cubes that have magnetic panels on the inside of them. And so you're not only trying to get from the starting point to the finish point, but you're also manipulating the racetrack, again, in 3D space. You can stack these cubes up on top of one another. You can swing them around, rotate them, whatever you want to do to try and give yourself the best path to the finish line, but also trying to squash your opponents, knocking them off the course and forcing them to respawn and try over again. Now, this game is very random and chaotic, and that's not usually gameplay mechanisms that I like to work with, but it can be a fairly quick game. It can be a very funny and silly game, and I have enjoyed my playthroughs of this quite a bit. Number 99, Reality Shift. Number 98 introduces cooperative games into this list. This is Spirit Island. Now, I know a lot of folks, sorry Camilla, would probably like to see this a lot higher on this list, but let me sort of explain. I think this is a really good game. It is a very intricate, it's a challenging but not impossible really puzzle game of trying to defend an island of native inhabitants against invading colonists, right? New people moving in trying to, make this island their home. And it's a really good game. It's just very daunting to approach. And I think even to some extent that's because people refer to this as such a challenging and daunting game that it kind of scares folks off. But on top of that, the first several times that I played this game, I actually did so on the app. And there's a fantastic app for this game. But for some reason, every time that I played it, I just got absolutely stomped. I was not able to absorb enough information on the screen of everything going on and all of my various options. I couldn't sort of easily just, go through the different cards that I had available. And so I just could never beat this game. I've still never beaten this game on the app. But when I finally started to play it in person with some friends, I had a great time with it. And it was far more approachable, far more easy to understand. And I was able to, see the strategy, see the tactics, and play very well. But I think that just because of that, I've had a very slow approach into Spirit Island, and I just haven't gotten it to the table as many times as I would have liked to be able to appreciate it for what it really is and how it works. Still, a great game, a great puzzle game, a great cooperative game, and one that I don't think folks should be as afraid of as they can be. Spirit Island, my number 98. Number 97, I have no one other than Z Garcia to thank for, because this is Jamaica, already the second racing game of this series. Jamaica is another very random, silly game where players are going around an island trying to collect treasures, trying to fight off other opponents, trying to keep their crew fed and other things, and being the first to simply race around this island with the most gold at the end of the race. This is another very random, silly, chaotic game. Again, not something I tend to gravitate towards, but again, just one of those games where everyone is sitting there laughing. It presents a lot of those sort of stand-up moments when you win a combat against another player or just do something very clever, and that's why I have had a lot of fun with this one. I also do have the crew expansion, which I have never gotten to try out. I really need to get that played, and I've had a lot of fun with this even at events like the Dice Tower Retreat. So that is my number 97, Jamaica. Number 96 on the list is the first sentimental game for me and my family, because this is Lanterns, the Harvest Festival by Christopher Chung. My wife and I were traveling in Athens, Georgia, and we came across this small game cafe and coffee shop near the University of Georgia. Ended up just kind of going in, getting ourselves a drink, and pulling this game off the shelf to try out. We had a lot of fun with it. This is a very simple, straightforward set collection game where you're collecting these lanterns, then turn in sets of those lanterns for points from the Emperor, and of course, as you turn in those sets, their value continues to decrease. So it's kind of this racing element to try and get those sets put together as quickly as you can. A very pretty game, right? And we've got a local copy of it sometime later. And then I set about replacing the cards in the game that represent the lanterns that you collect with these 3D printed components that I myself designed and made. And it really changes the way that this game sort of looks on the table. It really makes it kind of pop out a little more off the table. And it's just really made it even a more unique experience for us to play this game. This is one of the first games that we ever played. Obviously, the first time that we played something at a game cafe. And so, yeah, it has some sentimental value to us, and it certainly was going to always make the list at number 96, Lanterns, the Harvest Festival. Number 95 introduces the first game from Bezier Games and designer Ted Alspach. This is Maglev Metro. This is a pickup and deliver game of trying to pick up various patrons in a variety of cities, especially thanks to the expansions of extra maps that are available, and you're dropping them off wherever they want to go. However, they then kind of become indentured servants to you, sort of being added to this board in front of you that then acts as an engine building element to make your trains move further, or be able to change directions, or be able to pick up more patrons, carry more patrons, drop off more patrons, so on and so forth. I really like engine building games. This is a really unique twist on it because, especially in this game, you've got a variety of in-game scoring conditions, but you only have access to one of them at the beginning of the game. And as you're playing and collecting more of those patrons, you can possibly unlock more scoring opportunities. And so there's this kind of weird twist where you could be really building up your engine and have a very capable metro company, but not actually have any endgame scoring points available to you. And that really changes up the way that you have to think about and approach this game. A unique puzzle, one that I have yet to master in any way, shape, or form. There's also a very good app for this game available as well, and I think you should check it out. Number 95, Maglev Metro. I suggested you would hear this a couple times, and here we go again with something completely different because this is Q-Birds, a little card game from Catch Up Games. I believe this is now distributed by AEG here in the US. My daughter stumbled upon this game at a games cafe, this time here in Midlothian, Virginia. I think the kind of Minecraftian pixel art really appealed to her, and she wanted to try this out. This is a kind of a drafting game where you're trying to complete flocks of birds. You have to get one of 7 different flocks of birds or 3 of 2 different flocks to win the game. It's kind of a racing game to either of those end game conditions. But the way that you draft these is very unique. You have to play out all the cards of a particular bird to the table, which has I believe 4 different rows of cards. And then you can take all the cards between the ones that you placed and a matching card of that same bird in the row. So you're kind of giving away birds to collect more ones to, again, try and complete these sets of flocks, and each bird has a different number of cards you're trying to collect to complete its flock. A very, very unique game. There is a good bit of randomness to it and how it plays, which is why it's not higher up on my list. But my daughter absolutely loves playing it, and I think it creates a very level playing field because of that random element to it. She loves playing it. We love playing it with her, of course, and that's why it's number 94 on my list, Q-Birds. Here we are rounding the corner at number 93, and already the 3rd racing game on this list. This is Rallyman GT by the now defunct Holy Grail Games. I was introduced to this game with the original Rallyman, which was on a website called boitejeu.net, which is also now out of business. But these are a very, I would say, a fairly unique racing game where you're using dice to move, but the dice represent the gears of your car. And so you have to pick a strategic sort of track, a path around the course where you can try to use every single die, but then you're racing the die to try and see if you encounter any hazards along your way. So there's this kind of push your luck element to it. And while push your luck is not one of my favorite mechanisms in a game, I do like the way that you can go flat out. If you think you've got a good chance at rolling all the dice and not coming up with too many hazards, you then get these Sisu tokens, which you can spend later to guarantee a successful placement of the die. Basically, you don't have to roll the die, you just spend these tokens instead. I also really like with this particular version, there is a ton of tiles in this game and you can set up a wide variety of tracks. I've done setups of the Virginia International Raceway here in Virginia and other sort of iconic racetracks. The downside being that it takes absolutely forever to set up this game, and those hexagonal tiles can tend to wander a little bit on you, but still something that I have really enjoyed playing. This game looks fantastic. I'm really bummed that Holy Grail couldn't stick things out and get the dirt version, the dirt expansion of this game out to players. But a very good game. You can still track this down fairly easily. It also has an app that supports some of its play. You can't play on the app. You can play, however, on Board Game Arena, which lets you skip an awful lot of that setup. A great implementation of the game. Rallyman GT by Holy Grail Games, my number 93. My number 92 on this list might be a tad polarizing for some folks, and let me be clear, I'm not bothered by that because this is Exploding Kittens. This is a game that sort of always made sense for me and my family because we love cats. We have a ton of cats. If you saw our Maglev review here on the channel, you would know that. We also reviewed this game here on the channel, my daughter and I, because as she has gotten a little older, a little more into just general strategy and tactical games, she has absolutely fallen in love with this game. This is a game where players are drawing cards from this massive deck, trying to avoid drawing an exploding kitten card, which they must immediately be able to defuse, putting it back into the deck, or they are eliminated from the game. One of the biggest complaints that I've seen about this game is that it is a stupid random card game. And that's not wrong. It is a stupid random card game. But folks, all card games are random. That is the nature of a deck of cards. But that tactical aspect of trying to look and see what's in the deck, trying to force other players to draw extra cards from the deck, trying to do things to sort of keep you alive and keep feeding cards to other players makes this game deliciously tactical. And especially with a couple of expansions that have come out for this, like the Streaking Kittens, one of our favorites, and also the Zombie Kittens, which even gives you a way to avoid that player elimination aspect of the game. This just continues to add new stuff to keep things interesting and sort of evolve the game. And so we have had just a ton of fun with this. It is one of our family favorites. We love taking this to like pubs, local bars, introducing to other friends, getting a big group, sitting there chucking cards and blowing up some kittens. Just a lot of fun, and a game that I am not apologizing for. Number 92, Exploding Kittens. And here we are already at the end of this list. My number 91 is Kraftwagen by Stronghold Games. This is the V6 or second edition of this game, and there is already another version of this game coming out, sort of set in the US. This game is set in Europe. Now this is a car game, but not a racing game, although there is a test track that can also generate some points for players. But in this game, you are representing various well-established, famous European car designers. So there is Ettore Bugatti, Gottlieb Daimler, and Carl Benz. And so again, trying to design these various cars, but there is this really unique element of then trying to sell these cars to buyers. And in that aspect of the game, you can undercut other players. You can try and beat them to the market and try and sell cars out from underneath them. And it kind of adds some elements that made me always think of Food Chain Magnate. It's not nearly as heavy as Food Chain Magnate, but does still give some of that, clever strategy in how you approach the sales aspect of this game. This also does use the time track. That's the track where basically the player in the back of the track gets to go next, and they could get to go multiple times if other players have passed up some other actions. That's not my favorite mechanism in a game, but especially at two players, I felt like this game is still dynamic enough to stay interesting, and I really do enjoy the different ways that you're trying to go about designing these better cars, improving their bodies, their engines, so on and so forth, and then again, selling them to buyers. So I've had a lot of fun with Kraftwagen. I'm very looking forward to the newer version of it, the US-based version with like the Dodge Brothers and Chevrolet and such, but still set in that older era of just gorgeous, iconic vehicles. Kraftwagen, my number 91. And like I said, that ends this first list of 10. I hope you've enjoyed it here so far. We've got plenty more to go, and I will see you soon. Cheers.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.